September 25, 2014, here at the Catalyst Coop. Got something cool to show today, or at least I think it is. And maybe this is a project you haven't taken under yourself yet on your homestead, your modern homestead, your urban homestead. This is a woodshed I put together over the last couple weeks out of junk that I've had saved up for some project or another, and this is the one that it fit into. And it's amazing how that happens sometimes. Keep in mind, most of this stuff was barely cut on at all. You'll see that in the skeleton work here in a minute, but this is, I just utilized stuff as much as possible in the form that it was already in, and take a look, you know, it looks pretty good. I don't like the stagger that ended up happening on the roof, so I'll probably trim that up. Whatever. It's ended up, after rationalizing how this really needs to work and keeping bugs away from the house and all these types of things, it's worked out, and it's ended up fulfilling many functions. So function stacking, and one of those is I was able to work around some fence here that used to come clear up and over to the side of the house here, and there was some fencing that went right along here. So I've opened this paddock up over here to this one, just adding it a little bit more space, but also now giving it access to the barn at all times. So now all paddocks have access to the barn at all times. So saved some fence there, and I'll utilize that in another place. So it's created a wall, and that wall has served to make a nice cozy little area back here, which will definitely be utilized as a barbecue area, a deck, you know, sitting patio area. And of course it's really close over here to the front herb gardens, so if a person wanted to permaculturalize it, it'd be, you know, this is all zone 1 activity, and it would be set up that way. So as for the wood and the bugs themselves, I minimized a little bit of garden space right here to create the new chopping block area where everything can get split up, and then this can actually be cleaned up and taken and scattered around the outskirts of gardens and things where the bugs can do whatever they want, and especially be eaten by the chickens, but trying to keep the mess of things that carpenter ants and termites would want to get anywhere close to the house, I guess. And though it's not a magnificent concern, as a lot of people would lead you to believe, it's still nothing to necessarily overlook as well. So chopping block area there, and then a secondary area where after the wood is freshly bucked, it can be stacked over here, and the bugs will actually do some good where they'll help to peel the bark away from the log itself. And as it goes through a season of drying in this area here, it can then be taken over to this area where it's split. Most of the bugs are knocked out and off, and then stacked in there in the woodshed for its final drying phase. So here's a whole stack for this year to be bucked, and it will then sit for the season and dry under a tarp, and most of the summer next year as well. And then of course be chopped and put into the woodshed. About 2 cords is what it will hold. It'll probably never hold quite that much, unless I really just max it out, and I'm storing a few other things in there as well. So about 1.5 cords. And I think if I had to go literally without any municipality heating at all, which is gas out here, then, which is unlikely anyway, considering it just flows through the pipes, then it'd probably be about 2 cords a year that I would actually burn. So this is a good number. We'll see actually, but that's semi what some of my numbers in the past have told me, also still utilizing gas. So it is close to the house, about 15 foot total. You look around the corner. Obviously access to and from the house with the wood, plenty easy. I'm gonna now create another area just I can back right up here and drop off logs, easy enough. And this can still be growing things as it needs to be. Frankly, as you look down here, There's still plenty of clover going on. New buckwheat has started for this fall season. I doubt it will seed out before we get a frost, but there are some flowers around. And as these cedars grow up, this area will get less usable anyway. So it all works out. See how the woodshed is, I've just basically tied it, very basically tied it to the woodshed itself. Always utilizing what I have around, and it is not that that's cheap or cheesy, by the way. There's, what's going to happen to that? I mean, you can, if you want to be perfectly professional about everything and have everything you own look like it's done by a professional, then that's your business. But from the perspective of someone who builds things for utilizing them and not for beauty necessarily, you can see how well it works out. And free. Salvaged clasp. Open up the doors. And I did doors. I've seen some woodsheds and man, they're just wide open on the sides. But here in Kansas, we get a lot of blowing snow, a lot of blowing rain. So even though I've left the top wide open and the flutes of the tin are wide open on the top and bottom, and of course there's huge amounts of airflow underneath, also keeping critters from wanting to hang out underneath there. So it's very airy, even though it's enclosed in and protected. So it's not like it's creating a chimney. It's not that airtight around its body, but still enough airflow, and probably does create some chimney effect, at least at times when the sun's bouncing on it. So this frame itself is an old crate that I utilized years ago, or salvaged years ago, and then utilized for several things over the years. The tin came from a friend who would have literally just taken it to Acme, so I saved him the time. Same with the front, different tin from different place. Some of this was part of that project over there, which was recycled from a tornado damaged carport, amongst other pieces. Excess wood like the cedar planks I come across somewhere that would have just been thrown in the trash because they were leftovers or something. 2x4s. These 2x4 doors were salvaged from a barn I built in town before I moved out here, and I just had to cut them down a little bit to size to make it all work. So I still got to do some splitting yet this year to get where I want to wood wise, but at least I will not once again have to deal with, won't have to deal with any snow on my wood when it comes time, because the friggin' tarp is blown off, which is constant. The patio area back here, this will be a fun project on its own. Seriously, I'd like to just do concrete, but that probably won't do that, so it'll end up either being a deck or I'll find some flagstone. And in time, the choke cherries will grow up back here, blocking this area some more. More privacy, more wind protection. Put a large gate, like a 6-foot tall cedar gate here, just for privacy when you want to sit back here and barbecue and have a drink or whatnot. So lots of functions to it. It was well thought out. I've actually spent probably the last year and a half for sure contemplating where I needed a woodshed and where it was going to fit into the plan, and this has worked out really well. I'm going to add some gussets eventually, going up about 9 foot tall total, 4 foot wide. It's got a pretty solid stance, but I think it'd be worth it to put some gussets back here on this side to give it that added stability from tipping over. As usual around here, I utilize anything that I can possibly find. I'm not in any stretch of the imagination a hoarder, but I certainly save items that I am certain I would be able to utilize at some point in the future. And this is an example of that, so I thought I'd kick it out there. Let it be a catalyst for others to utilize the things around us simply by utilizing our imagination.